Some destinies don't end. They multiply. For 3 months after saving the young woman at the bridge, Dan lived in a strange quiet. No letters, no predictions, no shadows waiting at his door. Peace felt foreign, like wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. Every morning he checked the welcome mat anyway. Every night he scanned the streetlights for movement. Nothing. He thought the chapter of the letters was closed. That destiny had done its work. But destiny wasn't finished with him, not even close. It was a Friday evening, the kind of evening that feels heavy with unspoken meaning. Dan walked into his small apartment, kicked off his shoes and froze. Right in the center of the living room carpet, not on the doorstep, not slipped under a door, not thrown through a window, sat an envelope. He felt the hairs rise on the back of his neck. This one was different. It wasn't typed. It wasn't neat. It wasn't calm. Written in frantic dark red ink were 3 words: Daniel, help me. His pulse thundered. This wasn't from the old woman. This wasn't from the future he had already lived. This felt like a scream. Inside, the letter contained one sentence, shaky, desperate, uneven. At 10:36 tonight, someone will vanish. Only you can stop it. Dan stared at the words for a full minute. The ink looked rushed, smeared, almost blurred, as if written while running, or crying, or hiding. Someone would vanish, and only he could stop it. The clock on his microwave read 9:02 p.m. He had an hour and a half to figure out what destiny wanted from him this time. That night, as Dan drove through the city, something strange began to happen. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a memory. It was a flash, fast, intense, painful. A dark alley, a woman's scream, hands pulling her away, a truck engine roaring, a voice, a man's voice. Not again. Not this time. The flash vanished as quickly as it came. Dan slammed on the brakes, heart racing. He had never seen that alley before. He had never heard that voice. And yet, he knew, with a certainty that chilled him, the vision wasn't from his mind. Someone was sending him what they were seeing. Someone in danger. Someone who needed him. 10:28 p.m., Dan parked near the downtown market, crowded, noisy, alive with weekend energy. People rushed past him in every direction. Which one of them was the one who would vanish? From the vision, he remembered. A dark alley. A scream. A man's voice. A truck, 10:31 p.m. Another flash, sharper, painful. A street sign, Benton Lane. The scream, louder now. Help! Someone please! Dan bolted across the street, pushing through the crowd, 10:34 p.m. He turned the corner. Benton Lane. The alley was ahead, 10:35 p.m. A woman stepped into the alley, pulling her coat tighter around her shoulders. She looked tired, distracted, alone. Dan's heart dropped. She was the one. A shadow shifted behind a dumpster. Someone stepped toward her quietly, 10:36 p.m., the moment of the predicted disappearance. "Hurry!" Dan shouted, sprinting forward. "Stop!" The woman turned, startled. The shadow lunged. Dan didn't think. He threw himself between them, grabbed the attacker's arm and slammed him against the wall. The man's hood fell back, revealing a face filled with rage and panic. "You shouldn't be here," the man growled. "This wasn't meant for you." Dan tightened his grip. "Who are you? Why were you following her?" The man smirked. "I wasn't following her." He leaned closer, voice low and venomous. "I was following you." Police arrived minutes later. The woman was shaken, but unharmed. The attacker didn't resist, not even once, as if he had expected all of this. As they locked him inside the patrol car, he looked at Dan through the window, eyes cold, calculating. "You think you're the only one receiving letters?" he whispered. Dan felt his blood turn to ice. "What does that mean?" But the door slammed before the man could answer. Dan stood there long after the police left, staring at the empty alley. If he wasn't the only one receiving messages, if someone else was following instructions, if someone else had a sender, then destiny was bigger than he imagined. Much bigger. When Dan returned home past midnight, exhausted, unnerved, shaken, the second letter of the night waited for him. This one wasn't desperate, it wasn't chaotic. It was calm, clean, chilling, typed neatly like the old woman's letters. "Daniel, you have saved someone again." "Good," he exhaled shakily, but then he read the next line. "But you cannot save the next one." His stomach twisted. The letter ended with a single horrifying warning. "Because the next one is you." He stood frozen in his living room, heart pounding in his throat. Then, knock, 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 slow, heavy, deliberate. Dan's breath caught. It was after 1 a.m. No neighbor would knock like that. No friend would be awake. No police would knock softly. He stepped closer to the door. Another knock. This time followed by a voice he recognized from the vision. Not again. Not this time. It wasn't the attacker. It wasn't the old woman. It wasn't anyone he knew. It was someone else. Someone who knew him. Someone who had been waiting. Dan reached for the doorknob with shaking fingers, and as he touched the cold metal, a third letter slid under the door. He picked it up with trembling hands. 3 words: "Do not open." The story continues. If you are enjoying it, comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss part 3. See you soon, and thanks for watching.